All right, so let's transport ourselves back in time for a bit.
Yeah.
Imagine like ancient Babylon. You've got these massive temples, these grand palaces, all these impressive structures casting these long shadows over much simpler mud brick homes.
The real mix, huh?
Yeah, and there's this constant hustle and bustle. Chariots racing through the streets, people going about their daily lives, some in fine clothes, and then maybe you see someone down on their luck hoping for a coin near the city gates. It's like this really dynamic
Full
place.
of contrast, for sure. You've got immense wealth, and then right there beside it, very real poverty, all within these huge, almost legendary city walls.
And it's in this setting, right? This ancient world that we find these stories, and they're not just any stories. They're about how people thought about getting ahead, about, dealing with life's ups and downs and how to navigate it all.
And what's really striking, right, is how timeless they feel. Like we're talking thousands of years ago. But the core human desires haven't really changed that much. That longing for security, for a better future, for some kind of prosperity, it's all there.
It's like even back then, people were grappling with the same fundamental questions we still ask ourselves today. So when we look at the experiences of people in ancient Babylon, it's not just like ancient history. It's actually about uncovering these deep-seated principles that have stood the test of time.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to try to do together in this deep dive. We're going to pull out those valuable lessons without getting too bogged down in the historical minutia.
Right. Because what we really want to do is bring these stories to life. And what's amazing is that they offer these practical insights into, well, everything. Building wealth, dealing with debt, recognizing those opportunities that come along, like even personal growth.
Yeah. And what's fascinating is that the world they were living in many ways, actually mirrors our own. So get ready for some, I think, some surprising insights and hopefully a few of those aha moments.
All right, so where do we even begin with all this? Let's start with these two guys. Their names are Bansir and Kobe. They're just, ordinary guys living in Babylon.
Regular folks.
Exactly. And the story kicks off with Bansir, who's a chariot builder, feeling a bit down. He's looking around, sees his modest place, and then he sees the palace, the temple, all this grandeur, and he's thinking, there's got to be more to life than this.
That classic feeling, right? Like, haven't we all had that thought at some point?
Yeah.
Wanting more than just enough to scrape by.
Totally. And then his buddy, Kobe, shows up. He's a musician, always seems to be in a good mood. And he asks Bansir for a couple of shekels, just a small loan.
Everyday needs.
Yeah. And Bansir, who isn't working at the moment, he sort of sadly says, oh, I wish I were rich. And that kind of sparks this whole conversation between them.
They start to realize that just having a full purse is not the real solution. It's like Kobe says, a full bag empties fast if you don't know how to refill it. It's about more than just having money at this one moment.
It's about that flow, right? The continuous income. And that's when Bansir has what he calls this luminous idea.
I love that.
Yeah. He says, why don't we go ask Arkad for some advice? Now, Arkad was known as the wealthiest man in Babylon.
Yeah, he was legendary.
And Kobe mentions that Arkad even taught his own son, Nomasir, how to be successful. Apparently, Nomasir went off to Nineveh and built his own fortune without any direct help from his dad.
Really made something of himself.
So they're thinking, hey, it doesn't cost anything to ask for some good advice. And that's what really motivates them to actually, go seek out Arkad.
And that right there, that's a huge step. They recognize that knowledge and mentorship are valuable. It's not just about, luck or working your fingers to the bone. It's about learning from someone who's already achieved what you're aiming for.
Right. So they go find Arkad, and his background is actually pretty interesting. Like, he wasn't born into wealth at all. His dad was a humble merchant, had a bunch of kids, no inheritance coming his way.
Humble beginnings.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is that Arkad even admits that he wasn't particularly strong or, incredibly smart.
He really emphasizes that becoming wealthy was a conscious choice he made.
Oh.
A commitment he made to learn and then follow, like, the rules of the game, so to speak.
And later on, some of his childhood friends, they come to him. They're feeling kind of envious. They're like, hey, we're still struggling. What's the secret?
And Arkad doesn't sugarcoat it. He's pretty blunt with them. He basically says, look, if you haven't achieved even basic financial well-being by now, it's probably because you haven't learned the rules of wealth creation, or you haven't put those rules into practice.
Yeah, no shortcuts.
Right. And he also talks about this thing he calls capricious fortune. He describes it almost like this fickle goddess who actually ends up doing more harm than good. Like, think about those lottery winners who end up broke.
That's a good point.
Yeah. He says sudden wealth can lead to reckless spending. People just keep wanting more and more, or they become terrified of losing it all. And it can actually make them miserable.
So true wealth isn't just about having a ton of money. It's about understanding how to manage it, how to grow it.
It's a mindset,
Yeah.
a way of thinking about money.
So Arcad, he goes on to share his own story. And he starts by talking about his early struggles. He gets a job as a scribe, working long hours. But no matter how much he worked, he never seemed to have any money left over.
It's that classic cycle, right? You work hard, you earn money, but it all just disappears on basic expenses. You never get ahead.
Yeah, and then he meets this guy, Algamish, who's a moneylender. And this is a really pivotal moment in Arcad's journey.
Pivotal.
Algamish hires Arcad to copy a law tablet, offers him a couple of copper coins if he can finish it quickly. Arcad is desperate for the money, so he works like crazy, but he doesn't quite finish in time. But instead of, being afraid, he does something pretty bold. He asks Algamish, "How did you become so wealthy?"
He seizes the opportunity. He realizes that information, that knowledge, it's more valuable than a couple of copper coins.
And Algamish, he's impressed by Arcad's initiative, so he agrees to share his secret.
The big reveal.
Right. And it's actually really simple. Algamish says, "I found the road to wealth when I decided that a part of all I earned was mine to keep." He stresses the importance of paying yourself first, of saving at least a tenth of everything you earn.
It sounds so basic, but it's incredibly powerful. It's that fundamental shift from spending everything you earn to consciously setting aside a portion for your future.
And he uses this great analogy, compares your savings to slaves that work for you. The idea is that your savings, they don't just sit there, they can actually generate more money, and then that money can generate even more money. It's like the snowball effect.
It's the beauty of compound growth.
Yeah.
Each coin you save is like a little worker earning more money for you, even while you sleep.
But Arcad's journey wasn't always smooth sailing. He made some mistakes along the way. Like, he tells the story about his first investment, which was a disaster.
The brickmaker's jewelry.
Yeah. He ended up losing all his savings on these worthless glass trinkets.
Ouch, right.
Right. He learned the hard way that you need to seek advice from people who are actual experts in the area you're investing in. It's like Algamish told him, would you go to the baker for advice about the stars? No, you'd go to an astronomer.
You got to find the right people to guide you. Blindly following anyone who seems successful can be a huge mistake.
So then Arcad makes another investment, this time with a shield maker, Agar. And this one actually starts generating some interest, but then, well, he makes another mistake. He spends all the interest he earns.
He gets tempted, throws big feasts, buys himself fancy clothes, the allure of immediate gratification.
It happens. But he realizes that instead of spending those earnings, he should have reinvested them to really make his army of gold grow even larger.
It's about delayed gratification, resisting the urge to spend everything right away and letting your wealth build over time.
So after all these experiences, Arcad kind of boils it all down to 3 key principles. Live on less than you earn, seek advice from competent people before you invest, and make your money work for you.
Those are the golden rules right there. Simple, but incredibly powerful. They form the foundation of financial literacy.
Eventually, Algamish sees how good Arcad has become at managing money, so he takes him on as a full partner. And later on, Algamish leaves his entire estate to Arcad.
Quite an endorsement.
Yeah. And Arcad, he also talks about this idea of opportunity. He says it's like a goddess who favors those who are prepared.
You got to be ready when opportunity knocks.
Yeah.
And that means having the skills, the knowledge, and the financial foundation to actually take advantage of those opportunities.
He also points out that it's not just about willpower. Like, sure, you need determination, but it's more about consistency. About, tackling those small everyday tasks with dedication. That's what lays the groundwork for achieving bigger goals.
It's like building good habits. It's not about these huge bursts of effort. It's about those small, consistent actions that you do day after day.
And he makes this really interesting observation about how creating wealth actually benefits everyone. He uses the example of a wealthy person building a palace. He says the money doesn't just disappear. It goes to the brickmakers, the laborers, the artists, and so on. It creates a ripple effect.
Wealth creation isn't a zero-sum game. When wealth is generated and then circulated through spending and investment, it can actually lift up an entire community.
So Arcad, he sits down with his old friends, the ones who came to him for advice. And he gives them a whole financial plan. He tells them, look, you need to save at least a tenth of what you earn. You need to invest that money wisely. You need to make sure your families are taken care of. Seek advice from knowledgeable people. Stay away from risky ventures. And, don't forget to enjoy life, just, without being wasteful.
It's a pretty comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
And it's surprisingly modern sounding considering it came from, ancient Babylon.
It shows that these basic principles of financial well-being, they've really stood the test of time.
For sure.
So now let's delve into what are often called the 7 cures for a lean purse. These are like Arkad's broader teachings, and the idea is that the legendary wealth of Babylon wasn't just some accident. It was because its citizens actually learned and applied these principles.
King Sargon himself, he recognized the importance of this knowledge. He actually tasked Arkad with teaching these principles to a group of people with the hope that they would then go on to share this wisdom with even more people.
It was like a financial literacy campaign.
Exactly.
So Arkad starts his class in the Temple of Knowledge, and his first cure, the most fundamental one, is start thy purse to fattening. In other words, save at least 1/10 of your earnings. He uses this analogy of an egg seller who always puts one more egg into her basket than she takes out to sell.
It's such a simple but effective way to illustrate the concept of saving. You always want to have more coming in than going out.
Arkad even says that when he started living on just 9/10 of his income, he didn't really feel any difference compared to when he was spending everything.
It's like we often have more flexibility in our budgets than we think.
The second cure is control thy expenditures, which basically means budgeting. Some of his students, they're like, how can we save when we can barely afford the necessities?
A valid question.
Totally. And Arkad explains that expenses, they always seem to grow to match your income unless you actively take control.
It's like Parkinson's law, applied to finances.
He uses this analogy of an ass carrying a load. He says, just like an ass decides how much it'll carry, you need to decide what your essential needs are and prioritize those over less important wants.
It's about making conscious decisions about where your money goes, not just letting it slip away on things you don't really need.
The third cure is make thy gold multiply, which is all about investing your savings. Arkad talks about his own early mistake with the brickmaker's jewelry, but then he contrasts that with his successful investment with the shield maker. And he stresses the importance of reinvesting your earnings.
It's about letting your money work for you. To really build wealth, you need to put your earnings back to work, not just spend them right away.
He even gives an example of a farmer who lent out 10 gold coins for 50 years. Through the magic of compound interest, that small amount grew almost 17 times larger.
The power of time and consistent growth.
The fourth cure is guard thy treasures from loss, which means protecting your investments. Arkad warns against chasing those super high returns if there's also a big risk of losing your initial investment.
You always have to balance potential returns with the risk of loss. A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, as they say.
The fifth cure is make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. This one is about owning your own home.
Owning your home can be a really important step towards financial security. It can help you build equity and reduce your long-term living costs.
Then there's the sixth cure, which is ensure a future income. This is about planning for your retirement and making sure your family is financially secure. He talks about different ways to do this, like owning land or making wise loans.
He even touches on the idea of life insurance, which is pretty forward-thinking for the time.
Right. And finally, the seventh cure is increase thy ability to earn. Here, the focus shifts from managing your money to investing in yourself. Arkad tells a story about a young man who was always complaining about his low income. And Arkad's advice to him was simple. Figure out how to earn more.
The idea is that your earning potential is your greatest asset. If you want to build wealth, you need to focus on developing your skills and increasing your value in the marketplace.
And he shares his own experience, how he worked hard to become the best scribe he could be. And as a result, he started earning more money without even having to ask for a raise.
It's about demonstrating your worth through your work.
Now, let's talk about a topic that's fascinated people for centuries. The idea of good fortune. In ancient Babylon, even though they had this very practical approach to wealth, they were still very interested in the concept of luck. It's a universal human desire, isn't it?
Definitely. Everyone hopes for a little bit of luck in their lives.
So in the Temple of Knowledge, there's this discussion going on about how to attract good fortune. Someone shares a story about finding a bag of gold, and everyone starts debating whether luck is just random chance or if it's something you can actually influence.
Some folks think it's all about fate, while others believe you can actually create your own luck.
Arcad offers a different perspective. He suggests that what we often see as just good luck in business is actually the result of our own hard work and preparation.
He's saying that we might be overlooking the role that our own efforts play in creating those seemingly lucky breaks.
And then an old merchant chimes in, saying we should consider all the opportunities we might have missed as near instances of fortune that we just didn't grab.
It's about being aware of the opportunities that are all around us.
A father then tells his son to seize any promising opportunities quickly, sharing his own regrets about times he hesitated and missed out on potential gains. And a desert man emphasizes that luck really arrives when an opportunity is actually seized and acted upon.
It's not enough to just see an opportunity. You have to actually do something about it.
They share the story about a missed chance to buy a whole flock of camels at a great price, but the deal fell apart because of procrastination.
Procrastination, the thief of opportunity.
Right. And then a saddle maker says that whenever he's sure a deal is good, he pays immediately, just so he doesn't have time to second guess himself.
He knows his own weaknesses.
An Assyrian merchant talks about how he had to conquer this mania of procrastination. He sees it as a real enemy of success.
Procrastination can be a really powerful force, holding us back from achieving our goals.
So the overall message is that people who actively look for opportunities and then seize them when they see them, they're the ones who tend to have good fortune come their way.
It's about being proactive and recognizing that action is the key ingredient to success.
Now, shifting gears, let's talk about the 5 laws of gold. These are some key principles that Arcad shares with his son Nomasir. He presents it as a choice between receiving a bag of gold or a clay tablet inscribed with wisdom.
It's a powerful metaphor. He's saying that true wealth comes from understanding the principles, not just having a pile of money.
Before sending Nomasir out into the world, Arcad gives him a bag of gold and that clay tablet with the 5 laws written on it. He tells Nomasir, you need to travel the world, prove that you can acquire gold and earn respect through your own efforts. Then come back in 10 years and tell me what you've learned.
It's a real test of character.
It is. And initially, things don't go so well for Nomasir. He loses all the gold his father gave him.
He falls for a horse racing scam and gets involved with a shady business partner. Classic mistakes.
He learns the hard way that having money doesn't guarantee success.
You need more than just capital. You need wisdom and experience.
So, Nomasir is humbled by this experience. But he doesn't give up. He finds a job and starts diligently applying the first law of gold, saving a portion of his earnings. He even asks the chief of the slaves for advice on how to make his gold work for him.
He's learning from his mistakes and seeking guidance from unexpected sources.
And it pays off. He eventually returns to Babylon with 3 bags of gold, showing that he now truly values his father's wisdom more than the initial gold itself.
He's learned the real lesson, that true wealth comes from understanding and applying sound financial principles.
So what are these 5 laws of gold? The first law is about saving, consistently putting aside at least a tenth of your earnings to create a secure financial foundation.
And the second law is about investing, making your saved money work for you so it grows and multiplies over time.
The third law is about seeking expert advice, entrusting your gold to those who are wise and experienced in its handling.
The fourth law warns against investing in things you don't understand or that aren't recommended by knowledgeable people.
And the fifth law cautions against chasing impossible returns, following the advice of tricksters, or trusting your own inexperience when making investment decisions.
It's about being cautious and avoiding risky schemes that promise unrealistic results.
Now let's shift gears again and talk about the topic of lending. There's a great story about a farmer who really understood animals. He shares a parable about an ox and an ass to illustrate the dangers of taking on someone else's burden when you lend money.
It's a cautionary tale about being careful who you lend to and making sure you don't end up carrying someone else's load.
We also hear from Matan, who's a wise gold lender. He tells stories about different borrowers he encountered, some who were successful and some who weren't. He really emphasizes the need to assess someone's ability to repay before lending them money.
It's about being discerning and making sure you're lending wisely, not just out of emotion or pity.
He gives some great advice to Rodan, who's thinking of lending a large sum to his sister and her husband. Matan tells him, be objective, assess their ability to repay, and don't let your personal feelings cloud your judgment.
He's saying that when it comes to money, you need to be clear-headed and make sure you're protecting your own interests.
And his final piece of advice is this: better a little caution than a great regret. Wise words, Ray.
Definitely. It's always better to be safe than sorry.
So let's talk about the walls of Babylon. During a time when the city is under siege, there's this old warrior, Benzar, who's guarding the massive walls. He reassures the scared citizens, reminding them how strong those walls are.
The walls are a symbol of security and protection. They represent the strength and resilience of the city.
And the story kind of presents these walls as a metaphor for our human desire for safety and protection. Like, we might not have literal walls around our cities anymore, but we still seek security in different ways.
It's a basic human need. We want to feel safe and protected.
Then we meet Tarkad, a camel trader who's fallen on hard times. He runs into Dabasir, another camel trader, who also happens to be someone Tarkad owes money to. Dabasir is surprisingly blunt with Tarkad, but then he offers him a meal and a story about his own past.
It's an unexpected act of kindness. Davazir could have just shamed Tarkad, but instead, he chooses to offer him some support and guidance.
Dabasir shares how he was once a slave in Assyria after a bad business deal. He talks about how he was sold into servitude and how his mistress, Sira, asked him a really powerful question. Do you have the soul of a free man or the soul of a slave?
It's a question that forces him to confront his own mindset. Is he going to accept his fate as a slave, or is he going to fight for his freedom?
Out in the desert, Dabasir realizes that his debts are his real enemies. He decides to return to Babylon, face his creditors, and rebuild his life. Sira's words stick with him. Thy debts are thy enemies.
It's a powerful statement about the burden of debt. When you're in debt, it can feel like you're enslaved to your creditors.
Inspired by Matan, Dabasir creates a three-part plan for his financial recovery. He saves 1/10 of his earnings, lives on 7/10, and uses the remaining 2/10 to repay his debts. He faces all sorts of reactions from his creditors. Some are understanding, some are not.
It's a reminder that dealing with debt is not just a financial issue. It's also emotional and interpersonal.
But through his persistence and discipline, Dabasir manages to clear all his debts and regain his respect. His story is a testament to the possibility of financial redemption, even when things seem really tough.
It's a message of hope. It shows that no matter how bad things get, you can always turn things around with hard work, a good plan, and determination.
And the story of Dabasir becomes even more interesting when we consider the discovery of those ancient Babylonian clay tablets. These tablets give us a glimpse into the real lives and financial struggles of ordinary Babylonians.
It's like we're getting a first-hand account of their experiences.
We even learn about a guy named Alfred H. Shrewsbury, who read about Dabasir's three-part plan on those tablets and used it to overcome his own debt in the 20th century. It really shows that these principles are timeless and can be applied in any era.
It's incredible how these ancient ideas are still relevant today.
Finally, there's the story of the most fortunate man in Babylon, Sharunada, a wealthy merchant prince. Despite his success, he's not truly happy. He sees his nephew, Hadangula, living this extravagant lifestyle and worries about him.
It's a reminder that material wealth doesn't always equate to happiness or fulfillment.
Hadangula asks his uncle why he still works so hard when he's already so rich. Sharunada decides to teach his nephew a lesson by sharing stories from his own past.
He wants to show his nephew that real wealth comes from hard work, not just luck or inheritance.
Sharunada talks about how he was once a captive along with a farmer named Megiddo who believed that work is the best friend I have ever known. He remembers advice he received from Godoso, who told him to always present himself as a hard worker to potential buyers.
Even as a slave, your work ethic can be your most valuable asset.
Sharunada was a slave to a baker, where he learned the trade and even started earning his own income by selling honey cakes. He met Arad Gula, Hadangula's grandfather, who praised him for his work ethic.
It's the power of initiative and determination. Even in a difficult situation, you can create opportunities for yourself.
Sharunada saved everything he earned to buy his freedom. Later, he learns that Arad Gula had also been a slave, and they become partners. He even shares a story about Arad Gula's generosity during a famine.
It's a reminder that kindness and compassion are important, even when you're striving for success.
A woman named Swasti warns Sharunada about his master's financial troubles, and he eventually escapes. Arad Gula buys his freedom and makes him his partner, attributing his own success to Sharunada's hard work.
It's a beautiful story of friendship and shared success.
Hadangula finally understands that it was hard work, not luck, that led to his grandfather's and uncle's success. He realizes that a life of idle leisure is not fulfilling.
He has a change of heart. He sees the value of hard work and decides to embrace a more meaningful path.
And just to give you a bit of historical context, there's this section about the city of Babylon itself. It wasn't wealthy because of natural resources, but because of the ingenuity and hard work of its people. They built these amazing irrigation systems to cultivate land in an otherwise arid region.
They transformed their environment through innovation and effort.
And they had relatively peaceful rulers who focused on development rather than conquest. Their civilization made significant contributions to engineering, astronomy, mathematics, finance, and written language.
Their legacy is truly impressive.
The walls of Babylon are mentioned again as a testament to their engineering skills. Even the fall of Babylon to Cyrus was unusual because he didn't conquer the city by breaking through the walls. He used a clever strategy.
Sometimes it's not brute force, but intelligence and strategy that win the day.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into the wisdom of ancient Babylon, the main takeaway is this. These principles of financial well-being, they're timeless and applicable to all of us, no matter where we live or what time period we're in.
The Babylonians were onto something. These principles are as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago.
So here's a final thought for you to consider. Which of these Babylonian secrets resonates most with you right now? And what's one small step you can take today to start applying it in your own life? The magic of building a better future might not be about waiting for luck. It might just be about understanding and actively using this timeless wisdom.
I think that's a great place to leave it.
Yeah, I think so too. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Until next time.
It was my pleasure.